Guten Tag und herzlich willkommen auf meinem YouTube-Kanal German made easy from scratch. Heute ist es mein Ziel, noch eine Vergangenheitsform durchzuführen und das heißt das Perfekt. Und diese Vergangenheitsform wird ja in der Alltagssprache sehr oft verwendet. Ja, es ist sehr wichtig, das Perfekt zu lernen, ganz bestimmt. Auf die Plätze, fertig, los. Aber bevor wir anfangen, vergesst nicht zu liken und zu abonnieren. Das ist mir sehr wichtig. Und dann vielleicht muss ich das alles auch auf Englisch erklären, für die Leute, die nicht sehr viel Deutsch können. Okay, so today we're going to go through the perfect tense. Das ist die Zeitform. The perfect tense. It is the tense that's used most often in the past in German. There are occasions when the preteritum is used, as I explained last week in the video number 31. But today we're going to go through the perfect, which is the one that's used the most often in German. And at the very end of the video, I'll give you a few phrases that you can use for the past tense. Let's go. And also don't forget that I'm very thankful to Zoe, who has done all the graphics for me, and she does all the editing, and it really has made a big difference to the amount of work that I have to do for you. Ja, lass uns anfangen. Let's start. Das Perfekt wird überwiegend in der Alltagssprache verwendet, wie ich schon gesagt habe. It's already used. It's mostly in everyday language. An example of that is, was hast du gestern gemacht? What did you do yesterday? Ich bin ins Kino gegangen. I went to the cinema. Ich habe den neuesten Film von James Bond gesehen. Now, if I had a euro for every time I've heard that from people in the oral exams, I would be a very rich woman. But unfortunately, I don't charge euros. Again, one of the favorite things to say, what did you do last weekend, is I went to the cinema. Okay, so there's one of an idea of an example. Now, but how do you form the past tense? We're going to go deeper into it now. Get yourself a cup of tea or a cup of coffee, maybe a bit of chocolate and a biscuit, and be ready for this, because this is going to take a little while because it's so important. You have haben plus Partizip zweiter. Das means so most of the verbs in the perfect tense are done with the verb haben, simply because nearly all the verbs are followed by an accusative object when you have the verb haben. Yeah, then you have your accusative object for most of the verbs. And all reflexive verbs are also done with the verb haben. So, sich entscheiden, to make up your mind or to decide, or sich unterhalten, to chat. So here, for example, ich habe mich noch nicht entschieden. I haven't made up my mind yet. Hat mit mir unterhalten. He chatted with me. And ich habe mich gewaschen. I have washed myself. So there's an examples of some of the ones done with haben. And then the ones done with sein are always verbs usually that move, going, coming, I call the going and coming verbs. So for example, gehen, to go, fahren, to travel or to go as well if you're going by a vehicle. And don't forget, abfahren will have the same rules, because abfahren is to leave, but it will have the same rules as fahren, and ankommen will have the same rules as kommen. And then you have the verbs which they're quite confusing for an English mind, the Zustandsveränderung, the ones with changing a situation. For example, werden, to become. That's always done with the verb sein. And aufstehen, like you're changing the situation from getting up to not being up. Aufwachen, to wake up. Bleiben, to stay or to remain. And sein, of course, to be. And examples of that are is Lehrer geworden. He became a teacher. Ich bin gerade aufgewacht. I've just woken up. Ich bin gerade aufgestanden. I've just gotten up. Ist eine Woche in Frankfurt geblieben. Now, we will discuss this, but this is just an idea of what's ahead of you in this video. So these are ideas of most of the verbs are done with haben, and then the movements verbs are the ones who are done with the verb to be, which is sein. Okay, so I'm going to start really, really simply. Das conjugative Verb entweder, haben oder sein ist primordial. Primordial, das bedeutet sehr wichtig, very important. Very important that you know those very, very well. So as a bit of Wiederholung, a bit of revision, here's the verb haben. You have to decide which of the ones you use the most. I also home in on the pieces of the verb that you use the most and get those into your head really as fast as you can. And then go back then over the ones that you don't use as often, because again, you have different types of exercises to do in exams, what you're talking about, what you're writing about, and then perhaps you have to do a grammar section as well. So you have to divide up your thoughts into, let's say, how much time you're going to spend on what I am going to do or he's going to do and all that type of thing. And then, or he did in this case, and then go back over it again, for example, ideas that might come up in a grammar section. They can be a bit trickier. So get yourself on the road first and then go back over it again to get the other bits. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Now here's sein, very, very irregular, as you can see. Just a bit of a Wiederholung. So the next bit, I've divided them up. Teil 1, what I refer to as the t-verbs. Why do I call it a t-verb at all? Well, you'll see in a minute. Verben sind oft, sind ja die regelmäßige Verben, the regular verbs, and the past participles which end in t and begin with ge. So they are my t-verben, as I call them, because they end in t. For example, kaufen. I take off my en and get my main stem, as I call it, the Stammvokal, right? And that's my main stem here, right? I put ge here at the beginning of it and t at the end. So then I get gekauft. So the most important thing you can do if you're looking to get a past participle is take off the en and then start from there. For example, ich habe einen Kuli gekauft. I bought a pen or I have bought a pen. Ich habe einen Rock gekauft. I bought or I have bought a skirt. Das konjugierte Verb ist am Anfang und das Partizip ist am Ende. So the conjugated verb is at the beginning and second position, remember that? And the past participle is at the end. Now that's in the basic German sentence. Your verb will always be number 2 and it's going to be your conjugated verb, and then your past participle will be at the end. Another example of my t-verb is spielen. I went down to spiel, then I put ge in front of the spiel and that gave me gespielt, and then I finished it off with the t, so gespielt. So now I have my past participle for spielen, which is gespielt. Again, ich habe Klavier und Geige gespielt. I played piano and violin. And look at verb number 2, and at the end is your past participle. But remember, the past participle remains the same all the time, but it's the conjugated verb. For example, it could be du hast Klavier gespielt, hat Klavier gespielt, or wir haben Klavier gespielt. All of that, it's the conjugated verb that's changing, which is haben in this case, and gespielt remains exactly the same the whole way down, regardless of who's doing what. Have you got that in your head now? We'll go through it again. Ich habe Klavier gespielt could be der Mann hat Klavier gespielt, die Frau hat Klavier gespielt, die Frauen haben Klavier gespielt. You know, that's the way it goes, and this is the conjugated verb, das konjugierte Verb. Another example, like there, ich habe am Samstag Fußball gespielt. I played football on Saturday. Another favorite phrase for somebody when I ask people in an oral exam, was haben die letztes Wochenende gemacht? And here's the good old machen here. Gemacht. Wir haben unsere Hausaufgaben gemacht. We did our homework. Again, what you do, you get your main Stammvokal, das mach, and you put ge in front of it and t at the end. And that's for all regular verbs. But there are, of course, variations on regular verbs. For example, Teil 2. Die Verben mit be, emp, ent, ge, miss, ver, zer, sowie die Verben auf ihren bilden das Perfekt ohne ge. Zum Beispiel, now the verbs with these inseparable prefix, which we dealt with before, be, emp, ent, all of those, they don't have a GE at the beginning of their past participle. For example, erledigen, to complete or finish, would be erledigt. Ich habe meine Hausaufgaben erledigt, instead of saying machen all the time, which I get very bored when I'm hearing machen all the time. And it's the go-to verb for an English mind. We have to be a bit more imaginative and try not to use machen as much as we do, and just put in another verb. So, but erledigen, I like to get my pupils to use as often as I can. So, ich habe meine Hausaufgaben erledigt. That means I've completed my homework, I've done them. And noticing here, I just have my T because of the ER is already there, too hard to be putting in another one, another GE. And it's always usually to do with pronunciation. Besuchen, to visit. My past participle, besucht. Ich habe meine Großeltern besucht. I visited my grandparents. Bezahlen, to pay. Bezahlt is my past participle. Ich habe schon bezahlt. I've already paid. I'm fully convinced because everything, in my opinion, humble as it is, depends totally on pronunciation and what people find easy to say. And language changes over the years, and it's usually because to make language easy for people to say. If I was to say it would be too hard. Erzählen, to tell or to relate. My past participle is erzählt. And then what I've got, hat die Geschichte erzählt. Now you have your ieren ones. My two examples that I've here, like there's plenty more verbs, as you know, there's lots and lots and lots and lots of verbs. And you know, my opinion, humble as it is that the verbs are probably the one that get you going in an understanding of the text. So try and get as many verbs into your head as possible. Studieren, to study at university. It doesn't mean to do your studies at night or doing your homework or anything like that. Studieren is done, you're taking a course at university. So be very careful of that. Very, very careful of this verb. Studiert, and then telefonieren, telefoniert. So, ich habe an der Universität in Mannheim studiert. Or hat gestern telefoniert. So there you have your ieren, some examples of your ieren verb. You could have organisieren, you have it as organisiert, you know, all of that, anything with ieren in it. They're just two examples, now you know what to do. And there'll be no GE in front of those, you just have the T on your past participle at the end of it. Is that okay so far? So if you need to go back over it, all you have to do is flick back over on the video. So it's not too bad. It's not as if you're in a classroom and you're only hearing it once and hoping that you remember all the details. But anyway, you can flick through this as often as you can. And of course, there will be a link below that Zoe has organized so that you can see all of this on a PDF. Trennbare Verben. This is my Teil 3, separable verbs. Abholen is my example because, again, we always, in our exam situation, have to use abholen quite a bit. So, ab trennt sich vom Hauptverb. So the ab, of course, obviously separates from the main verb. So it becomes ab, and then you put your GE in front of the main part of the verb, which is the filling of the sandwich. So geholt. So then your past participle is your abgeholt. So I often say, just for people who are having real difficulties in understanding this, I say, well, just consider your ab as a slice of bread, your holt as another slice of bread, and then GE is your filling in the middle. So that makes your sandwich. So abgeholt. Ich habe meine Tante am Bahnhof abgeholt. I collected my aunt at the train station. Einkaufen, to shop. Same story. Eingekauft. Und ich habe bei Lidl eingekauft. I shopped at Lidl or Lidl store. Is that okay so far? Am I going too fast? Again, it's just to go back over it. Go back and go back each time until you really think, oh yes, I have this at last. It's really worth putting a bit of time into because it's used a lot. Now, we have our unregelmäßige Verben, oder they're also called n-Verben. Now, the first ones, the regular ones, I call them t-verbs or t-Verben, and these ones are called n-Verben. Why am I calling them n? Why? Because it ends in E. My past participle ends in the EN. Now you have your GE at the beginning and put EN at the end. And these are the irregular ones. So for example, schreiben is the verb to write, and its past participle, because it's irregular, is geschrieben, wrote or has written. For example, ich habe einen Brief geschrieben. Okay, I'll write that in for you here now. That might give you an example. Ich habe einen Brief geschrieben. That means I wrote a letter, or I have written a letter. Another one here, finden, to find. Ich habe meinen Schlüssel gefunden. I found my key. Brechen, to break. Past participle of brechen is gebrochen. Maybe I should write that in, make it even clearer again. And the past participle of finden is gefunden. Okay, so that might help you a bit better. Anything that makes it clearer. There we have, ich habe mir das Bein gebrochen. I broke my leg, or I have broken my leg. Hopefully you won't. So there's it. Then backen, the verb to bake. So gebacken is your past participle. There it is. Okay, so hat einen Kuchen gebacken. He has baked a cake, or he baked a cake. Singen, the verb to sing. Das Chor hat am Sonntag gesungen. So there we have that. So they're very irregular. Brechen, gebrochen, backen, gebacken, singen, to sing. And then you have finden, gefunden. But gebrochen, if you think about it, you know, it's not too far away from broke, you know, it really isn't. And gesungen, sung, you know, it's not too far away. Here's another one, nehmen, to take. Hat die erste Straße links genommen. He took the first street on the left. So the past participle, as you know, is genommen. Okay, got that? It's easy as that, really, but it does take a bit of memory work, and it does take a bit of just sitting down and learning, and doing a bit every night. Stehen, the verb to stand, und wir haben vor der Tür gestanden. We stood in front of the door. So obviously then the past participle of stehen is what? Come on, say it out. Gestanden, gestanden. Unregelmäßige Verben ohne GE, as we've met before. We have them also without a GE. For example, sich entscheiden, which I said at the beginning. Hat sich entschieden. He made up his mind. Vergessen. Sie hat vergessen. She's forgotten. Or sie hat ihren Schlüssel vergessen. She's forgotten her key. Verlassen, to leave. Das Mädchen hat 9 Uhr das Haus verlassen. There you have it. Empfehlen, to recommend. Hat mir dieses Hotel empfohlen. He recommended or has recommended this hotel to me. So there's ones there. Now on to the mich verb. Now these are the ones that most people find very annoying, because you've just learned your regular ones. You've just learned your irregular ones. But now you have a mixture of regular and irregular, and they're called the mich verben. Now examples of these are denken, to think. The past participle is gedacht. See, it's not ending in en, it's ending in t. But the Stammvokal, the main stem, has changed from denken to gedacht. And that's why they're called mich, because they end in t, not in en, but they're still very irregular, annoying. Here's another example. Bringen, to bring, gebracht. Nennen, to name or to call. Hat seinen Sohn Johann genannt. So obviously the past participle of nennen. Come on, what is it? Genannt. Moving on. Kennen, to know, gekannt. And wissen, another verb that means to know, but it's to know things. I know that, but not knowing people, or it's not followed by an accusative. In other words, wissen, that's not followed by a direct object. It can't be. So, but kennen can be. So I'm going to do another video on that shortly, so I wouldn't worry too much about it at the moment. But the main thing is, you know, that wissen at the moment is to know things, and then kennen is to know people, to know places, etc. Haben, gehabt. But as you know from our last week's video, in video 31, hatte is probably more used than ich. For example, hat einen Hund gehabt. He has, that's in the past, in the perfect tense, but hatte einen Hund is probably more used because it's easier to say. Moving on, Teil 4. Now we're coming to the Verben mit Bewegung. Die verwenden sein als Hilfsverb im Perfekt. So they use sein as that. So anything with movement, going from A to B. There's a huge confusion, especially I'm talking about spielen, the verb to play, but are we not moving from A to B when we're playing? Well, no, that's not the case. It has to be something that you're starting at A and you're beginning at, and you're finishing up at B. That's really thinking about it in that way. So you're starting at A and you're finishing up at B. So gehen, the verb to go, fahren, another verb to go or to travel, kommen, fallen, fliegen, laufen, schwimmen, etc. All of those are done with the verb to be. Now, gehen, gegangen, sounds a bit like gone. gegangen. Ist ins Kino gegangen. He went to the cinema. Kommen, the verb to come. Ist gestern gekommen. He came yesterday. Now remember, ankommen goes the same way, and it's a separable. So you could say ist gestern angekommen, that he arrived yesterday. It falls under the same remit as other separable verbs. Fallen, to fall. Ich bin auf den Boden gefallen. I fell onto the floor. And then fliegen, to fly. Past participle, geflogen. Ich bin nach Spanien geflogen. I flew or I have flown to Spain. Schwimmen, to swim. Geschwommen, swam. Ist gestern geschwommen. He swam or has swum yesterday. I would never say I swam or he swam. Fahren, to travel. Ist mit dem Bus in die Stadt gefahren. He went into town by bus. Laufen, to run. Ist schnell in die Stadt gelaufen. He ran fast or quickly into town. Right, so they're all the ones done with the verb to be. But now we have a few more in my pocket, as I say. So Verben mit Zustandsveränderungen. So with this change, verb to have a sort of a change of a situation. Sterben, to die. Sterben. There is a change of situation from being alive to being dead. So gestorben is the past participle. Und sie ist gestern gestorben. She died yesterday. Another one. Werden, to become. Past participle is geworden. Sie ist Krankenschwester geworden. She became a nurse. Aufwachen, to wake up. Aufgewacht. Ich bin gerade aufgewacht. I've just woken up. Aufstehen, to get up. Aufgestanden. Ich bin 9 Uhr aufgestanden. I got up at 9. Bleiben, unusual one, but it is amongst this group. To stay or to remain. Blieben is its past participle. Wir sind 3 Wochen auf der Insel Mallorca geblieben. We stayed on 3 weeks on the island of Mallorca. Sein, itself to be, so gewesen. Ich bin gestern im Theater gewesen. That means I was in the theater yesterday. But ich war, you could easily say, ich war gestern im Theater. And a lot of people would say that. But I do know that in Austria, people use, and in the south of Germany too, you can hear this quite often too. Ich bin gewesen. But you can use ich war. It's just I'm just thinking in terms of grammar sections in your exams. I'm really thinking about that. Ausdrücke, phrases that you'd have for the past tense. This is just a few. There are many, many more, but just a few to get you on the road. Gestern, yesterday. Gestern Abend, yesterday evening. Letzte Woche, last week. Letztes Wochenende, last weekend. Letztes Jahr, last year. Letzten Dienstag, that's an example of your days of the week. Last Tuesday. Letzten Dezember, last December, examples of your months. Vor einem Tag, a day ago. Vor einer Woche, a week ago. And vor 2 Tagen, 2 days ago. So that should get you through it. Und hoffentlich habe ich euch ein bisschen geholfen. Hopefully I've helped you a bit. And then don't forget, I've done a lot of work. It took me ages to get all this written up. So hopefully all I'm asking you to do is to like and subscribe. And perhaps you could leave a comment. And if there's anything I want you to do. Now, a few people have asked me to do stuff for the oral. Well, the past tense certainly was an absolute requirement for your oral exam. So make sure that you get that under your belt, because you'll always be asked a question in the past tense to see are you able to do it. And also next week, the next one, I'm going to home in on maybe some questions that will be asked in the oral exam as well, so on a theme. Okay, so we'll leave it at that, but put into the comments, please, if you specifically want me to do something on family or die Familie or the Wohnort or die Umwelt or whatever it is you want me to do, I'll do it. You put it into the commentary. Okay, so tschüss, bis zum nächsten Mal auf meinem YouTube-Kanal German Made Easy from Scratch.